Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Today's topic has to do with our character and having a solid character so that we can be successful in our lives. There's different areas of success, and I think the one that I want to highlight today is concerning marriage and family. Having a solid character is one of the main things that is going to help you for your relationship to last and for your family to fare well. Why didn't I say that God is the reason that a family will last? Well, most people, when they get married, they make vows and commitments under God, and they still don't fulfill their commitments. So just because they put the name of God on it doesn't mean that it's going to last. And in fact, good, strong character comes from biblical principles, and it is indeed from God, but it is an action and it is a principle that requires dedication, knowledge, understanding, and application. So it is from God Himself, but it's just not what people have made it to be. And if we make commitments to God or under God, we need to be solid in our character so that we can keep our commitments. Because God Himself told us through His Word that He would rather our yea be yea and our nay be nay. He would rather us not make promises that we cannot keep. Thankfully, He is merciful and He is very forgiving, and He is willing for us to be forgiven and to grow from the mistakes that we make. So the reason why I'm making this video is because I myself have made many mistakes in my life, but through study and through character building, I am finding new insight from the Father that is making me into the type of individual that I realize that I want to be. I remember when I was more naive, first transitioning from childhood to adulthood. And when I was that age, I wasn't very interested in character. I was more interested in exploring personalities and people around me, relationships, and my family members, and just, being curious about the world around me. But I thank God that as I got older, I began to consider character more, and I began to watch the world around me and the different things in the world that cause people grievous pains. And I've studied those things. And I've also learned through trial and error that the more solid you are in your character, the more successful and peaceful you are in life. And so, marriage was the thing that I was reflecting on. So, I'm going to try to stick to that. So, today I was just pondering this topic again in my mind before making this video. And I realized, like, from talking to a few different people, hearing about the issues that they're facing in life, that life is going to smack you with problems and it is unavoidable. Even if you do find a true match for yourself, there are going to be things that are going to arise that are going to test you guys. And that is most certainly indefinite. You cannot escape it no matter how amiable you are, no matter how kind or temperate you are. The world, it seems like the universe is going to create an issue to test you. And that's just one thing that is good to note before you get married. So when you are going through the pleasantries of the early stages of a relationship, it's good to be sober minded and to know that there will be storms. And as you are getting to know the person that you are courting for marriage, it is good to ask yourself if this is the person that you would like to go through the storms of life with. Don't just assume to yourself, I know this is the person for me because I just feel like I'm so in love. And I know that you can just make the most informed decision, but you can't necessarily make an all-knowing decision because it takes a lifetime to get to know someone. So just say you took things very slowly and you dated for 2 years before you decided to get married, and you feel like you know the person pretty well. I can guarantee you that you don't. A lot of times, how can I wait? How can I confirm that? Well, many times people face a trauma when they're younger and they go about their life as if nothing's wrong. But then when they go and speak to a counselor, they find out how that trauma has actually affected them, and it has affected the way, maybe some areas of their decision making. So that trauma that was not addressed was still lingering and causing a character flaw in the person that wasn't recognized until years later. So people are constantly growing, they're evolving, they're changing, and the more solid you are, the more consistent you will be in what you're showing to a person. But if you are not solid, then you're subject to be very changeable. And even the most solid person is subject to changing, especially after 5, 10 years. Things happen. One example I could say is how the Bible stresses to Christians that, be aware that charm is deceitful and beauty fades. And a lot of time in the American society, many people do go for charm and for beauty and things like that. But the Bible lets us know that those things change. And if you got in the relationship for charm and beauty fades, then you're not going to be consistent in the way that you react or respond to that person, because that was the thing that you were seeking after. So that's one example of how things can completely change a relationship if that's what you got in it for. And so people, we know that we would call that shallow. We would call that shallow. So let's go a little deeper. Just say you find somebody that you really like, you date for 2 years, you mesh well, you guys have a similar sense of humor, you get along well, when you talk, it flows, it feels stimulating and lovely, right? But then you face an issue that you weren't thinking about in the beginning, maybe because everything was going all right between the two of you. If you love your family, if you just say you have a family, intermediate family, or immediate family, and this person, now you're bringing them around your family, and you start seeing some things that aren't so pleasant. Maybe it's a difference in political views. Maybe your family has some strong political views and this person has an opposing view, and now heads are clashing. Now you may still feel exactly the same way that you felt 5 years ago about this person, but this sort of tension is one thing that can begin a shift in a relationship. And it's just small things like that creep their way into the relationship, and it's like it just causes problems. And that is going to happen to everyone. And it may not be that exactly, but there's so many other issues. For instance, I've heard stories about people who wanted to adopt children, and these couples were very nice, very loving people, very peaceful, very minimalistic, but they wanted children, and this has happened in more than one case. And they bring a child into their life, into their castle that they built, and they begin to face issues because they brought this child. They made the decision to bring the child into the castle. So now the problems aren't directly coming from them being a mismatch, but the problems are coming from the cares of life and the issues that are arising because they took on a child. So basically, being in a marriage and getting into a marriage is going to have multiple unforeseen defiances against the marriage. Like I said, it's almost as if it's set up in the universe that way. It's impossible to have a perfect marriage without any problems. But the one of the biggest things, as I said in the beginning of the video, that can help for your marriage to last is solidifying the character within yourself. Working out the character flaws within yourself, because the attributes that it actually takes to make something like that work, it comes from within, and it has nothing to do with the outside. Some issues that cause, one of the biggest issues people say that causes marriages to break up is financial problems. Then there's lust and adultery. There's what they call irreconcilable differences, which I think that some of those are just excuses for the financial. And then for the lust problems that people have, what else? Let me think. And another big one is pride. Now notice that these things, they manifest outwardly, but they come from within. And pride is a very big one, because if you have a lot of pride, it's going to mess with you in all areas of your character. It's going to mess with you in your communication. Like, for instance, if you have to be the loudest, if you have to be the one with the last word, if you always have to be right, those three things all come from pride. Because if you develop humility in your character, you definitely are not going to have to be the loudest one. You're not going to have the last say. And you're not going to always want to be right or prove that you're right even when you are. That's the beauty of humility. Pride is just ugly, and it messes everything up. And I think that pride can also have something to do with lust at times. I've heard about people who get into midlife crises and they don't feel the same. They feel discontentment, and they try to get their mojo back maybe by getting with someone younger. I don't know about that side of it, but I believe that it's all under the pride of life. And the more that you get your character right, you'll be able to see more clearly to deal with the issues in this world that attack marriages. The truth is that having a humble character can even be a saving grace for a marriage. It is possible for someone to be a good influence on their spouse, but it is a little bit unfair, because that humble spouse is probably going to invest many years in taking on the brunt of the marriage, because pride really is a heavy yoke upon a marriage and even upon a person. And so it's just beautiful to even have one solid person in the relationship, because humility is very powerful, and it can change an atmosphere if you use the skills that come with the spirit of humility. It's possible to make a difference. But if that's true, wouldn't it be even better if you have two people that are solid in their character? That I think that it would work out very well. Now, all good things and all good characteristics, I personally believe that they come from God. Even if you have a person who is out in the world and they're doing their thing, and just say they have an honest spirit about them, or they just like to be honest, they like to be truthful, that will even benefit a person who maybe has some pride issues, because hopefully they would determine, like, for instance, a man who has issues, he knows that he has problems liking multiple women. If he has some truth in his heart, he'll tell himself and he'll tell others that I can't get into a relationship right now. I feel like I would hurt somebody, and the character that I have is not befitting of a monogamous relationship. Now, I am a Christian, so I don't believe in having relationships outside of marriage, but this is the real world that we live in, and this is happening around us every day. So that was just an example of how the characteristics and the qualities that come from God are just completely beneficial. And I think that most women would say thank you to a man that was he had enough character to at least let you know that marriage is not something that he is ready for. Now, imagine if that same person was maybe lustful but also covetous, and he saw an amazing woman, and he decided and knew she was an amazing woman, so he just wanted her for himself and decided that he was going to be who he was and have her too. How would you guys feel for that woman if you were onlookers and you saw this about to take place? You would feel terrible for her, right? And so we took away the beautiful quality that comes from Christ, from that man. We took away his honesty, and now what does he have? Nothing, right? He's just about as good as a dog. So that's what we are. And you become most beautiful when you are abased down to that, and you realize without the beautiful things that come from Christ, I'm nothing but a dog. I'm no better than an animal without Christ. And that's just something that no one can ever take from me. It is my truth. And his words, God's words now, it's what I live for, because I may not be totally up to par when it comes to his standards, but you better believe I'm working them out as if they are the very thing that are giving me life. Because I've noticed so many positive changes since I've learned to apply God's standards and take them seriously. So many of us in this world, because it is hard, it takes discipline to do these things. Some feel like God puts a heavy yoke on us, but he really doesn't. When we begin to apply it and we receive his beauty and his purity, we really begin to understand that he knows all things. He understands every aspect of how he created us. Our likes, our dislikes, even our sexuality, which I'm not going to get into that at all. But he knows about all of those things, and he cares, and he's not trying to put a heavy yoke on us, but rather he's trying to preserve us in his love and his peace and his joy. He's trying to prepare us so that we can weather the storms of this world with grace, the grace that comes from him and the knowledge of his truths. And so we can begin to apply that to our lives. If you guys take anything from this video, it would be this, because I did have a hard time recording this video as well, and that's been happening a lot. Normally I just get on and the Lord blesses me and I'm able to flow, but I did have to pause this video a couple of times because it's difficult recording this one. But I want you guys to apply that and take it with you. The scenario that I gave of the man and us being no better than animals, every good thing that the Lord adds onto us, it adds beauty to us. It adds value to us. And it makes us have that solid character that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. And if you assess yourself and you realize, man, I'm pretty prideful, I don't like to talk to people, or just say I'm talking to a man who wants a housewife, but I know that I'm lazy. I know I'm lazy. I know I don't like to do no laundry, right? I know I can't cook, whatever it may be. Instead of just getting married anyway and hurting yourself later, it's good to assess these things and to ask yourself, am I willing to change for this person? Am I willing to change for myself? Do I even have the motivation to change? And if not, maybe apply that honesty. And one thing I can say about people when they're in love, their hearts will be deceitful. And they may say to you, oh, that's okay, girl. You know, I like you. It's okay. I can cook. And their heart is deceiving them. So it's very tricky. And all of these things are true. All of these things do happen. And it's just like maybe somebody who meets their ideal man and he has everything except the most important things. And you just lie to yourself and you look past it, but in the end you most likely will suffer for that, because you can't really change somebody who doesn't want to change. And so if you see somebody who is character focused and everything is not all about what you see, then that's a good person to be interested in, a person who is building from within, because that is where the true beauty comes from. And so I hope that if any of you are single or if any of you are married, that you will take this into consideration and do not be discouraged if you already are married, because it can start today. As I said before, one humble person can change a whole relationship. And if you really get into character, you can take pleasure with Christ through your own deeds and your own actions, knowing that you are applying the persona that Christ wants you to have. You can grow and become a beautiful person, even in a space that may be creating a lot of hardship for you. You know, there's a chance that you can turn that thing around. But if there's two prideful people, it's going to cause a lot of destruction in the relationship. It takes humility for it to work. Now, some people, even some Christians, think just because you got married in the church and you had a pastor pray God's blessing over your marriage, you think that that's all that is to it. We're Christians and we say a little prayer and that's it. Our marriage is going to survive. But that's not true. We are flesh. We are flesh, and God does allow us to be in situations where our flesh tempts us. Okay? And it's just, it can be a very heartbreaking and hard thing to go through, especially in the confines of a marriage. Because another thought that had came to my mind, and I had said it in another video that I had to quit and start over on. As an individual, if you are driven and disciplined, you can have a vision in your mind and you can make that vision come to life. But when you include people closely, that's when it may become a little more difficult, depending on what type of relationship it is that you're having with that person. And when you take on a marriage, oftentimes that comes with kids and different things that may deter your dream or change your dream in different ways. And if you don't have that strong character, you'll face disappointments, maybe even depression, because you're not able to take life for what it is. But when you're humble, the more humble you become, you're able to see life for what it is, and you're able to just make lemonade out of any lemons that come your way. So if you're just a single person and you're building the dream, yeah, it could be easy. It could be easy. But when you get into a marriage, that's what I was trying to say. You become one. You become one with somebody else, and you have to see them pretty much every day, and that may impact you, and it may test your character. So I hope that you all just continue to practice having a strong character. Take it very seriously. Learn to look within yourself. When things come out of you that are not pleasant, don't just give yourself a pass. But if you have to, write it down. If you notice something ugly about yourself, write it down, pray about it, look and see if there's any scriptures that can help you in that area of your life, because it will bless not only you, but it will bless those around you. And so lastly, I hope that anybody who's not married, that you will take your time and that you will marry somebody who is focused on building within. And if they're focused on building within, the outside, I believe it will follow as well, but it's not the most important thing. The Bible says that men look on the outside, but God looks on the heart. And it's for a good reason, obviously. Because as I stated before, most problems in the marriage come from within. It comes from the character flaws. It comes from a lack of patience and just spouts of anger, mistrust, a lack of faith. Because with one of the biggest reasons for divorce that they say, which I think it's debatable now, maybe back in the day they would say financial hardships. If you have faith, you and your spouse can weather through any financial hardships, because I guarantee you many things in this life are just a big test. Some people may not see it that way, but that is the way that it is, because we do have a God and we have an enemy, and anything that is good, the enemy is going to attack it, because the enemy loves chaos. So God sees marriage as something good. He said, "He that finds a wife finds a good thing." God sees children as a blessing to households. So anyone who has children, in God's eyes, it's a good thing. And so what does the enemy love to attack? Good things. And that is why there is such a big attack on marriages. There always has been. And that's another thing for you guys to reflect on. Don't just look for the feeling. Don't just look for what makes you feel good, but start with yourself. Ooh, Lord, help us. Because I had to go through that, and I tell you, it's painful, but it's worth it. When I had to look at myself and discover all the things that I could see, at least, that were not pleasant about myself, I wasn't so quick to look for a feeling anymore when it comes to marriage. Like, it was very, very humbling. And so on the flip side, I can say that I began to slowly improve on my character, and I'm still working on it. But I'm not just going to jump at the first man who comes my way, even if he is an amazing man. He's going to have to get some things understood about me, whatever I can relay, and hopefully make a healthy decision after we have communicated. Because there's no way for us to fully know one another. It takes a lifetime and beyond to really get to know somebody. And even then, only God knows the deepest, darkest secrets of that person's heart. So don't be discouraged, guys, but be encouraged, and know that with God, it is possible. It is possible to have a good life. It is possible to be joyful in a fallen world. It is possible to hope for good things, and it's also possible to be imperfect and yet receive good things from the Lord. So that's all I have for today. You all keep me in your prayers that the next video, hopefully I'll be back on the ball. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to record this today, but I didn't want to miss it. I didn't want to lose out because it came back on my heart. It was on my heart yesterday and it came back on my heart today. So now I have accomplished it, and I hope that it was easy enough for you guys to understand. Please feel free to engage in the comments below. And I do have some good news for you all. I did make some new songs. I will be uploading those soon. I pray that you guys will have a blessed week and that you will find the right person for you. But most of all, I pray that you all will go forth and continue to do that character building and see once you start how it begins to make you feel on the inside once you focus on that. So I love you all. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. I'll see you soon.